Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Stan here with you. Hope you're all having a great day today. In today's vlog, I'll be talking about the different types of drive systems in a vehicle. That is the differences between the two-wheel drive system and the four-wheel drive system. So stay tuned. So in the two-wheel drive system, there are just two types. It's either front-wheel drive or it's a rear-wheel drive setup. So take for example, this is a car. This is the front portion of the car and this is the rear portion. The engine is in front. Now if the engine powers only the front wheel, so only the front wheel rotates, so then it means it's a front-wheel drive setup. Now in case the engine powers the rear wheel and the rear wheel rotates, then it means it's a rear-wheel drive setup. Simple. So this is the two-wheel drive system. So the four-wheel drive system is actually divided into four types. That is the part-time four-wheel drive system, the full-time four-wheel drive system, and the permanent four-wheel drive system. And then there's the last type, that is the all-wheel drive system. Now I know people interchange the all-wheel drive with the four-wheel drive system and it's a bit confusing. So I'll try my best to explain to you in detail about all these four-wheel drive systems so that it will clear your confusions. So in part-time four-wheel drive system, what happens is that the car essentially moves in a two-wheel drive setup, but with a flick of a switch, the car can be transformed into a four-wheel drive system. So essentially what happens is that when you drive this car in the part-time four-wheel drive system on normal roads where there's grip, all you need is just a two-wheel drive setup. So no issues, the car goes in just with the power of the rear wheels. But now once it faces a steep incline or if it faces an off-road obstacle, what happens is that again with the flick of a switch, it can be transferred into a four-wheel drive setup. That is where all the four wheels rotate. But the issue in part-time four-wheel drive system is that there isn't a central differential. There just is a transfer case and there are two differentials. That is one rear differential and one front differential. So in this case, all the four wheels get equal power. That is, they rotate at the constant speed. So although this might be good for off-roading, it really isn't good for grippy surfaces because it creates a problem called transmission wind-up where all your mechanical bits get ruined. So what the manufacturer advises is never to use a four-wheel drive system on grippy surfaces, because when the car takes a turn at high speeds, if the wheels are at a constant speed, not only do the mechanicals get ruined, but also it creates understeer on the vehicle, which can cause serious accidents. So the disadvantage here is that it does not have a central differential. So in the full-time four-wheel drive system, it's actually similar to the previous one that we saw, that is the part-time four-wheel drive system. Only difference is that here you get the central differential. So once you have a central differential, what happens is that the speed in the front wheels and the rear wheels can be varied. So when this varies, what happens is you can use this four-wheel drive system completely on a normal road, that is on a normal grippy surface. There will be no kind of damages caused onto the mechanical bits in this drive setup. So that is the advantage of the full-time four-wheel drive system. It's similar, that is, you can switch between the two-wheel drive setup and the four-wheel drive setup, but the only advantage here over the part-time system is that you can drive it on normal roads as well as on off-road tracks. So in case of the permanent four-wheel drive system, the difference between the full-time four-wheel drive system and the permanent four-wheel drive system is that we had the option of switching to two-wheel drive system, but that option is not available in the permanent four-wheel drive setup. In this setup, what happens is that you do have the transfer case, you do have the center differential, but you also have a lower gear in this transfer case. So in this case, you can actually use this car for extreme off-roading purposes. So that is the advantage of permanent four-wheel drive system. So in case of the all-wheel drive system, the difference here is that although all the four wheels get power, but the power varies for each wheels depending on the traction it gets. For example, if an all-wheel drive vehicle system goes over an obstacle and suppose this wheel does not have grip, so what happens, this wheel does not actually need any power. So in such a case, the system automatically diverts power to the rest of the wheels that have grip so that it can tackle that obstacle. So this all-wheel drive system actually is controlled by an electronic differential. So that's how it works. So basically the all-wheel drive system is used on most soft roaders like the Mahindra XUV 500, the Renault Duster all-wheel drive system. So all these cars cannot be used for extreme off-roading, although it can be used for light off-roading. And apart from that, all-wheel drive systems are also used on sports cars like cars from the Audi RS6, the Audi R8, all these cars, all these high performance cars use the all-wheel drive system. Yeah, so now that we have spoken about all the different drive systems of a vehicle, so let's get back to the two-wheel drive systems. Typically in the Indian market, most mass market cars are all front-wheel drive vehicles. So the reason is very simple why manufacturers prefer front-wheel drive cars. Not just manufacturers, even consumers prefer front-wheel drive cars. It's because they are cheaper to make, they are cheaper to buy, and the reason is very simple, because there are less mechanical components required in a front wheel drive car. Like I mentioned, there's no need of the rear drive shaft, there's no need of a rear differential in case of a front wheel drive cars, because the powertrain and the drivetrain are all close by. The mechanical components required in making the front wheel drive cars are much less. Also, another reason is that there is no drivetrain loss by sending power to the rear wheels. So in such a case, front wheel drive cars are also more fuel efficient. So there are actually a lot of advantages with front wheel drive cars. First, they are very fuel efficient. Second, they are cheaper to make, so hence they are cheaper to buy. And also, for most users, front wheel drive cars can also do light off-roading. Like if you have a steep hill, there's a better chance for the front wheel drive car to climb the steep hill easily because of the weight and the grip in front. Whereas rear wheel drive cars like the Omni and the Versa won't be able to make up that hill because they are rear wheel drive cars, and because of their lighter setup, they'll have some difficulty in climbing that hill unless they are fully loaded. So actually that's the reason why front wheel drive cars are preferred more in the Indian market. Not just in the Indian market, even worldwide front wheel drive cars are manufactured more than all the other cars. For example, if you take any mass market cars like the Maruti Ciaz, the Maruti Swift, Hyundai i10, Hyundai Verna, all these cars are front wheel drive cars. So now let's get to the rear wheel drive cars. So if you see rear wheel drive cars, we do not have many cheap cars. Now if you just take sedans for example, the cheapest rear wheel drive sedan that we have in our market today is just cars from the BMW and the Benz stable. From the BMW we have the 3 Series, and from the Benz we have the C-Class, which are rear wheel drive cars, and these cars cost 40 to 50 lakh rupees on the road. So these are the cheapest sedans that we get in the rear wheel drive setup. It's because of the way they handle, the way they feel. They're very performance oriented cars. We did have some rear wheel drive cars in the past, like the Ambassadors. We had the Premier Padmini and also Tata Nano. These are all rear wheel drive cars, but they're all discontinued now, so we cannot include them in this list. There are ladder on frame SUVs like the Tata Hexa, the Tata Safari, Toyota Fortuner, Mitsubishi Pajero Sport, Ford Endeavour. Then we have MUVs like the Innova, we have Maruti Omni. So all these cars are rear wheel drive cars. So some four wheel drive SUVs that we have in our Indian market are like the Maruti Gypsy, the Ford Endeavour, Toyota Fortuner, the Mahindra Alturas G4, the Mahindra Scorpio, Force Gurkha. Then we have MUX, we have V-Cross from Isuzu. That's about it. So as you can see, all those cars that I mentioned are all very good off-roaders. That is, you can do light to extreme off-roading in these vehicles. Now let's take the example of all-wheel drive cars. So some all-wheel drive cars in the Indian market are the Renault Duster, the Mahindra XUV 500, then we have the Honda CR-V, as well as the Hyundai Tucson. These are all soft roaders. You can't do really extreme off-roading. You can just do slight to medium off-roading in these vehicles. So these are all examples of good all-wheel drive vehicles. So summing up, front wheel drive setup is all that you need in the Indian market or in the Indian context, because although roads are bad, the front wheel drive vehicles tackle almost everything. But in case you want to do extreme off-roading, that is where four-wheel drive setup comes in. You can actually have fun with four-wheel drive cars, because especially when you can select the gears in low range and high range. So with such options, you can actually do extreme off-roading. Suppose you want to do mild off-roading as well as enjoy the comfort of driving on normal paved roads. In such a case, you can go with all-wheel drive setups like the Honda CR-V. But you do need to keep in mind that four-wheel drive systems are actually much expensive to purchase, and they're much expensive to maintain compared to the front wheel drive setup. If you want a perfect balance, you can go for all-wheel drive systems. But if you're not going to do extreme off-roading, then definitely front wheel drive setup is all that you need. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's vlog and found something useful from it. And if you did, please do hit the like button. Also do consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done already. Until next time, this is Stan signing out. Bye bye.